My name is Lois Shannon, and I'm the founder of the Women's Network, which is an organization that's dedicated to creating a thriving sisterhood of happy, healthy, holy women. I feel that we are in a time where we've become, with so many expectations on us as women, somewhat fragmented, individually and collectively. That was definitely my own personal experience. And I have been going through a process of integrating and coming back to my wholeness as a woman. I think we have unique needs as women and also really beautiful, unique gifts. And we need to honor both of them. And Kundalini Yoga has been one of the really main tools for me in coming back to myself and recognizing all that I am as a woman. So I'm super excited to be here with Sukraj today to talk about Kundalini. And Sukraj, I'll let you just do your own introduction of who you are, and then we'll have Kenya do a quick introduction as well.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Lois and Kenya, for inviting me here and giving me this chance to spread these teachings to all women. You know, one of the things I'm just thinking of right now that Yogi Bhajan said when he first came to the States, the United States, is he was really bothered by the way that women were treated. And one of the first things that he said that really caught my attention is he said that, you know, people here call you chicks. And he said, when I look at you, that's not what I see. You're eagles, and I'm going to do everything in my power to help you to fly. So, yeah, so it's a beautiful thing to start this out with. My name is Sukraj Gippel, and I live here in Boulder, Colorado. I have been practicing this style of yoga for about 10 years. And before that was a vinyasa teacher and a hot yoga teacher. And so I literally stumbled my way into this practice at, you know, a real crisis in my life, a real breaking moment in my life. So it came, you know, as so many things in our lives do, right at that right time. And I had the wherewithal to recognize it and to step into it. So it's really healed me and affected me in the most profound ways. Aside from being a Kundalini teacher and still a vinyasa teacher, I am married and have been married for just almost 30 years, coming up on 30 years. And with that comes a whole level of, you know, experience and wisdom and easy times and hard times. And we have 2 children. And I'm also a psychotherapist. I work with addictions, and I'm also a clinical sexologist. So I like to bring all of those, the perspective from of yoga, all the different lineages of yoga, psychology, work with addictions, and work with our creative sexual energies as well. So that's me.
Fantastic. Welcome, Sukraj.
Welcome. Thank you.
And Kenya, if you want to do a little intro too.
Yes. So my name is Kenya Brading, and I'm working with Lois on the Women's Network. And this topic is really important to me because Kundalini has been a really amazing part of my life for just a year now. But even in that short amount of time, I feel like there's been so much that's changed, both with the relationship with myself and with others. I think Kundalini Yoga really helps me in relationship. And my boyfriend actually introduced me to Kundalini, and it's something we do together. And so it's very, very special to me. So thank you for this beautiful discussion that we're going to have.
Fantastic. So Sukraj, I thought as a place to start, since we are talking about Kundalini in relationship to being a woman, that it would just be interesting to hear when you were coming into your own womanhood as a teenager, as a young woman, what was Sukraj like at that time in her life?
Well, Sukraj went by a different name.
I know. I was realizing I was having a hard time with that.
She's been through many different morphing systems. But it's interesting when you say that to me, like, you know, it's an uncomfortable feeling to go back to that because I didn't know what that was like. I didn't have anyone helping me through that transition, through that process. And I distinctly remember when I started, developing breasts, that I hated it, that I would tuck my undershirt in so tight that it would, flatten me out. And it was just such a bother when I was running or doing anything. And so I was really closed off to that. I didn't have good examples of what that meant to me. And my own sexuality was something that was terrifying for me. And it was something that I didn't want to be looked at that way. And so I was always covering up my body in any single way that I possibly could. So, it was really uncomfortable. And it wasn't until I was lucky enough to fall in love with really great men. That has been a huge blessing in my life, is that the men that I've been with have been really beautiful and really amazing, that I begin to understand myself as a woman. And so it continues to be a process for me right now. And certainly having children and being, getting older myself and developing my own awareness of my sensitivity, I think that's what it means for me now, is to be absolutely engaged with my sensitivity and how much information and expansion I get, how much intuition I get from that, and just how much guidance I get from that, and how much I get from that by not, it's so much more of, the sensitivity allows me to attract more into my life what I want. And I'm realizing through the hard way that it's so much less about working really hard as it is about being more at home in myself, that I can start to draw, for instance, this conversation right here with you, or anything else like this, which gives me the chance to share what's in my heart. So
beautiful.
That's what it feels more like to me now.
So I was going to ask you the question, what does it mean to you to be a woman now? And it sounds like you've really answered a lot of that. It's to really feel all that you're feeling and to really be present for all of those experiences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And certainly, having 2 children, I have 2 daughters, and the opportunity when you have children is to, each age, each developmental stage they go through, there's my chance to, recognize and heal and give what I was not able to give, or what I was not able to get to actually give to my daughters is profoundly healing. And,
yes.
It takes you all over the place, but that has certainly been an understanding that I actually can make something, and I actually can grow something. And then that thing goes off into the world and it has its own other life and continues. So being a mother, certainly, I was saying just the other day that I think that's my favorite word in the world, is the word mama. There's no word and no sound combination that opens up my heart more than that, especially if it's when one of my daughters is saying it. So
yeah,
they've helped me to understand what it is to be a woman.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, I'm wondering if you can share with us a little bit about your journey with Kundalini, how you came to be a huge teacher and supporter of Kundalini. And what was your journey to get there? And what is Kundalini?
I started practicing Kundalini Yoga about a year into teaching Hatha Yoga, Vinyasa Yoga. It came at a moment of deep personal crisis in my life. And it was the opposite of what I was presenting to the world, which is I was stepping into finally teaching yoga, and was fairly successful right away in teaching yoga. And I think that success was disturbing to me. I didn't know what to do with it. And it brought up a lot of issues for me. And so that's what was going on personally. And then while I was teaching, I was bored teaching. I thought to myself, there has to be more than just telling people where to put their leg and what their arm should be doing, and, chaturanga and everything. And so I started to, and I honestly didn't know. I didn't know that there was more. My training was somewhat limited. It didn't expose me to the other limbs of yoga. And I didn't know that there was more to yoga than just the actual postures. So I started to pray when I was in class, that I would know what to do next, that I didn't want to just hang out with people and talk about their bodies, that I was wanting to go deeper myself personally. And I didn't know what that would look like, but I also wanted to at some point guide people in that direction as well. And so, you know, right around that time, I had a colleague say to me, you know, you should check out Kundalini Yoga. There's a Kundalini teacher who just came in town, and you should check it out. I think you would really like it. And before she even finished saying the word Kundalini, I was like, I'm there, I'm going. And so I went to a Kundalini class, and it was weird, and it totally freaked me out, and I didn't get it. But, you know, within a couple minutes of doing a certain pranayama, a certain breathing exercise, I started crying, and I don't think I had cried for a few years. And I was aware that some big rock inside of me just slightly moved, and some energy came up from that movement. And I felt something which I hadn't felt in a really long time. And so even though I was really confused by it, because I totally didn't get it, and my understanding of what yoga was so different than what I was doing, I knew that I would be going back. And so I just set my schedule where I was, you know, finding my way more and more into Kundalini classes. And then shortly after that, really shortly after doing it myself, there was the first Kundalini teacher training in Boulder. And so I jumped on board, and that's was an 8-month process, that training. And I learned a lot about myself in that training. And that was the point when I really committed to a personal sadhana practice, my morning practice before I even leave the house. And that has been the most significant change in me, is my sadhana, my morning practice. And so for many, many years, I did both. I taught vinyasa, and I taught some Kundalini. And it was really a matter of me just building up my own energy to handle the amount of energy that comes through one when they do Kundalini Yoga, to start to go more into that lineage. I still do teach vinyasa, but not as much as I teach Kundalini. And so that's how I started doing it. And then obviously right now, suddenly like a lightning bolt, I have a studio along with Guru Jagat in Boulder, Colorado. So
you were called.
Yeah.
You were definitely called to be teaching this, Sukraj. It's so beautiful. So can you explain a little bit the difference with Kundalini Yoga to some of the other yoga practices? And
I would love to.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful that you shared that first time you were there, that you cried. I don't know what it is that I cry all the time when I'm doing Kundalini Yoga.
No, I know. It's really amazing that way. I think it's good to start talking about first what yoga is, because I think there's a lot of confusion in America about what yoga is. And what yoga is in action is it's your absolute positive excellence. It's the absolute precision of your excellence in your behaviors. And what yoga is in your mind is your intuition. It's your willingness to hear your own voice and then move on that, make decisions on that. And that comes in really quickly. Your intuition is right there pretty quickly after the question comes up. The knowing is right behind that. Mm-hmm. And then yoga in your heart is compassion. And it's a willingness to look at our shadows, a willingness to go to those places that are really hard, maybe still shameful, maybe still holding on to anger from the past about somebody else, but keeping the heart open, keeping the heart vulnerable, and letting our kindness come out. And so that's really, really honestly what yoga is. And I mentioned just a little bit before is starting to teach yoga and having it just in my reference be just about the body. That was really unfulfilling for me. As much as I love that, I also got it like this isn't getting me anywhere. This isn't solving my problems. And so you start to understand that yoga, the word yoga actually means union. It's like when we can bring every part of ourselves together. We don't have to get rid of anything. Everything that's here is part of the whole. And we can start to understand that through our daily activity. That's truly, truly what yoga is. So it doesn't have to do with the postures. When we think of yoga, that's, where most of us go. And like I was thinking about that this morning of, it's the holiday seasons right now in the month of December, and I'll be going to some parties and people will say, oh, who are you? And what do you do? And I'll say, oh, I teach yoga. And they'll say, well, I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible, right? That's what we think, because we go right to the body. And it's really my understanding of my own self and my own healing is that is not where the problem is. The problem is in our mind and the way that we're the way that our mind actually works. And so, so it's just there. It's the way that yoga was brought to America is through the body. And so now, Kundalini Yoga really gives us this chance to understand more of those esoteric understandings, more of the spiritual aspects and components of ourselves. And the word Kundalini, it actually means awareness. And Kundalini is a word that many spiritual traditions recognize and use because of that awareness. We recognize, we've known that there is this base energy inside of every single one of us. And it's at the base of your spine, and it's called Kundalini energy. And in order for us to understand ourselves spiritually, we have to awaken that energy. So that's what Kundalini means. And Kundalini Yoga means the science of that awareness. So in Kundalini Yoga, there's a certain manner, there's a certain way that we go about understanding that experience of union with everything. When that energy is released inside of you, you just start to feel more balanced. Certainly the glands get taken care of. That's so important right now, especially for women. The glands are the guardians of our youth, and the glands, as they secrete, make it so that you feel. So I think that's what happens, when we say, why do I cry? Why do I get so emotional? Why do I all of a sudden feel that thing? Is because the glands are starting to work. And so they allow us access to our feelings. They take away that novocaine, that numbness that a lot of us have. And so that starts to balance out. We feel better from that. And then the nervous system starts to balance out. This is so important right now too, with all of the world events, is that everybody is on high alert. And so are our bodies, and the sympathetic nervous system is just waiting and looking and preparing for that next thing. So we have to really strengthen the parasympathetic nervous system, teach ourselves how to relax and how to stay calm and take those, big, deep, full breaths and all the magic that happens with that. So in that experience in a Kundalini class, we just start to become more awake, more conscious. And in that consciousness, for me, what I experience it as is just a widening effect, like a widening and a deepening effect. And in that, we start to hear our own soul. We start to hear that whisper that, oh, that's not working out anymore, or go for that. Go ahead and try that. And it's very quiet. It's very still. And it's very potent. And with the consciousness that you develop, just the understanding of your own body and all the sensations in it, that consciousness gives you that chance to now project your soul out into the world and to let the world see who you really are. And I think that's it. It's a practice that is very, very fast. The healing that comes in is really, really fast. I mean, we go through a lot in Kundalini class, you know it.
I was going to say, I think there's something about the combination too of the mantras and the chanting and the sounds with the movements in your body. And so it really is that connection between the mind and the body. And it is really interesting, the things that come up. I think for me, a lot of times it's because I'm also working the edge. There's something about that you kind of are pushing yourself with the Kundalini exercises. it pushes you beyond what you think your limitations, what you believe is comfortable, and what your limitations are. So I think it is extremely expansive in a different way than some of the other yoga practices.
Yeah, I mean, we do weird stuff in Kundalini.
It's definitely.
There's no way around it. There are moves that today, before I came here, it was like they were doing things that they probably have never, ever done. And then you get to go, wow, what does that feel like to have done that?
Yeah.
And it really goes into the dungeon, and it helps you start to bring that stuff up. And in that, there's a confidence of like, I'm alive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's what it means to feel my kidneys, or that's what it means to feel my liver. And that kind of confidence and ownership of your own physical body starts to turn into what I believe is self-love and self-care. And without that, the changes that so many of us need to make, we don't ever get to make because we don't care. We have to care first. And that means we have to feel. And when your arms are up for, 31 minutes, you're going to feel something. And so it's an entry point, into how to emotionally feel, how to spiritually feel.
Right. That's actually a really beautiful connection it's how to emotionally feel. Because I think that's where when the tears come, it's connecting all of that, right? A lot of times we don't want to go to those places that feel the pain or feel the emotional hurt. Yeah. And Kundalini has a way of taking you there in a very soft and loving way, I think. Right? So,
and part of it is like what you said, it's the group energy, that supportive group energy. Everyone who is showing up there is willing to go there, so everyone has that kind of agreement of like, we're all here. No, you don't know what's going to happen when you show up in a Kundalini class. Not like when you do in a Vinyasa class, you pretty much know what's going to happen. Kundalini, you have no idea. So there's this willingness to explore. And then there's also those beautiful mantras, which, in and of themselves make us feel. And the frequency, the vibration is so high and so healing and so known that we can't deny its effect on us.
Yeah. And you referred a little bit to this, but I would love to explore it a bit more, that how does Kundalini particularly help us with stress, with alleviating stress? As we're going into what is usually a very stressful period for us as women, the holidays.
Stress is not an illness, it's a condition. And what's interesting to me about stress is that it's the number one cause of disease. So this is really serious right now that we are, I should say, it really important that we talk about stress and monitoring stress, because it's a decision that your mind makes about the situation. I'm going to be stressed out. You're making that decision. So first we have to own that. Like, I'm choosing to be stressed out about the situation. There is another choice. So to me, it highlights so important why we need to meditate, is that we have to realize that this thing is the computer. It's telling everything else what to do. It's telling the universe what to bring us. And so when we say things like, I'm so stressed out, I'm so stressed out, I'm so stressed out, that's like you're giving that order to the universe, and the universe is saying, all right, bring her more stress, come on, more stress. And so it also puts us in this, constricted place. And when we're like this, rounded down, we're not breathing. One of the things that Yogi Bhajan says is like old age is the result of lack of deep, full breath. And so, what do we do in a Kundalini class? We breathe. We do, some of the most intense breathing that I have ever done. I never even knew how to breathe until I started doing Kundalini Yoga. And I would say that a good portion of the people breathe backwards. And what that means, when the correct way to breathe is when you inhale. You can try it right now. When you inhale, you want your belly to get really, really big. Big, big, big Buddha belly. And then as you exhale, the navel comes towards the spine and it draws back in. And then you inhale again and the belly gets really big like the universe. And then you exhale, the navel comes back to the spine. Now, because most people, in my opinion, I don't know this like scientifically, but in my experience, especially people with a lot of mental health issues, they are breathing backwards. So they have that pattern already backwards. Now that's going to affect the way the mind works, the way the gland works, the way the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system are engaging. We need to recognize that stress is having this, profound effect on us. And so we have to open up all the gates, all the channels inside of us to consciously release that stress. And this is where I think the repetitive nature of Kundalini Yoga, the movements that we repeat over and over, they become predictable, they become known, and in that way they become safe. You're the one that's controlling them. And in that, you can start to work with your mind. And there's this kind of churning, like it's true what I said. It's like it's getting down into the dungeons, these feelings, these thoughts, these memories that we once forgot about, they're suddenly being moved, and it's really powerful. And then you have an environment that's saying, now exhale that out, release that out. So you have this awareness of like, I am letting that go. That is over. And I realize I've been carrying around that, for all of these years. And so, just the breathing, the repetitive motion, and the way I think that the talks before a Kundalini class are often really, nourishing for people to understand that they're on the right track, and, gives a lot of permission for us to all feel what we're feeling, which that in and of itself releases and relieves our stress. So
I think a lot of the stress too comes from the expectations that we put on ourselves and also from others. And so the conditioning and judgment, which are all thoughts. Those are all things in our head. And so, as you said, the breathing and the coming into our bodies is hugely, and grounding and really being present is hugely balancing for the stress and these thoughts. And I think you said at the very beginning, the process of really being able to listen to our own inner voice, to be able to balance that with all of these expectations and judgments that we feel that are creating the stress, and knowing that actually, if we listen to our own voice, we don't feel the same amount. We don't have the stress because we're trusting our own inner voice. It feels like Kundalini really teaches us how to listen to our own voice.
It does. It absolutely does. And one of the factors for me that was so powerful in understanding this practice is that we have this master Kundalini teacher, Yogi Bhajan, who came in and Kundalini Yoga was a secret before it was brought to the United States. And he brought it here. And, there was never one point in his whole life that he said, come to me, I'm your teacher. He said, I'm here to help you get to yourself. And that is what every single Kundalini teacher says, is like, our job is to give you these kriyas, to teach these kriyas, these meditations, these pranayams, so that you begin to have an experience of yourself, so that you become loyal to your own soul first. And so when we have an environment, and then the base mantra, the Bij mantra says Sat Nam, be who you are. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the way that you look. There's nothing wrong with the things that you desire, that you want, that you're interested in, that Sat Nam is the gift of God or the universe or whatever word you like to use coming through you as you. So go for it. Those are pretty powerful messages right now. And we don't get those in most of our world. We get the very opposite. You're wrong. You should be doing different. You look wrong. You want the wrong thing. Your life isn't for you. You need to do all these things. And everyone's miserable with that. So when you get those messages and you have someone who knows that truth and is guiding you into that truth, then it just feels amazing. The amount of freedom and creativity that comes from Sat Nam, from being in our own true nature, is what is changing the world right now.
Yes, I really agree with that. And I think it is that general sense of empowerment, going back to the stress thing. We feel stressed when we're out of control, when we're not the one who's calling the shots, basically. And Kundalini really helps us get back in touch with our own true nature and what our own real needs are, and how we want to show up in the world. And I think that's what the world needs. And I love that in your classes, you always say, you know, we're not really doing this practice for ourselves. I think another thing women have a hard time with is investing in ourselves. And part of the conditioning is we've been told that it's selfish to go and spend time taking care of ourselves somehow. And really that we're showing up for all of those around us when we fully show up for ourselves. So you have some beautiful things that you always say about that we're here for the benefit of all, right?
Yes, and I would just clarify that does start with ourselves, like nourishing ourselves so that we're not depleted. Because the worst thing that women, what we do is that we give and we're pissed. We're pissed off. We give with a hook.
Yeah.
And we have to watch that. And that is just merely an indication that you have not taken care of yourself enough, that you actually don't have enough to give yet.
Yes.
So you have to figure out, how do I take care of myself so that I'm truly ready to give? Because that is our nature as women, is that we create and we give to the world, and then we create and we give to the world. And when we get out of sync with that natural part of ourselves, we give with a hook. And so when we don't get what, you know, we give, and we don't get something back, we don't get the thank you, we don't get the acknowledgement, and then we're upset about that, that's a hook. So that's not giving.
Yeah.
That's called manipulating. and we have to own that and not do that. And that's why we have words, and that's why we have a heart. And that's why we have this immense amount of energy as women, so that we can honestly communicate what we really want. The other person isn't going to get it. We have to actually learn how to say what we really want and build that skill. In yoga, we call that satya, communication, truth communication.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
And then it's, you know, especially in Kundalini Yoga, it's all about seva. Once we are aligned with ourselves and we've done the duty, the loyalty to our own selves, we've started our day with that, then we really have something to show up and give. And we want to give, because when you're full and you really are happy in your life, there's no other choice.
Yeah.
And so many studies, I know that you probably know, so many studies say, why are some people happy and why are other people not happy? And the one guiding factor is generativity. It's our ability to be generous to others that is truly what makes us happier than anything else.
Yeah.
And so, but, you know,
and it has to be sustainable. We have to be able to do it in a sustainable way, right? Mm-hmm. Where we fill ourselves up, and the image of the fountain, you know, and then what overflows is available for those others.
Right.
I think that's something that we're learning a lot about right now, is self-care and the importance of it. And I think Kundalini is just an amazing tool for that, because it allows us to get in touch with ourselves. Sometimes we don't know what we need. We get manipulative because we're not really conscious of our own needs. Exactly. And then we expect somebody else to meet them for us. So I think really getting in touch with what we need is a really big key. Well, I'm wondering, Sukraj, if you would be able to share with us a little sample or some little exercise from Kundalini to give people an experience of what Kundalini really is about and how it does some of these wonderful things that we're talking about.
Super easy thing to do right now, great thing to do, because what we were just talking about is nourishing ourselves. And what you want to do is think about your practice, whatever it is as like you would your bank account. And every time you sit down and you're with yourself in silence or in prayer or in meditation or whatever is truest for you, every time you sit down and you do that, you're making a deposit into your account that you can withdraw on if you need to. And you know, Buddha says, drop by drop, the bucket gets full. And so every moment throughout the day that we just pull away and we say, how am I breathing? What's going on in my head? You know, where am I? Am I in line with my truth? Did I just, you know, do what it is that I said that I really wanted to do? Or, you know, what you just take these moments throughout the day to check in. They really make a huge difference. And so a really good meditation to do right now, and it's probably one of the more common ones to help us to release stress really quickly, is called an 8-stroke breath. And it's very simple. If you've never done it, it might feel a little bit awkward at first, but hang in there because it's really, really good, really powerful. You just bring your hands into Gaian Mudra. So the thumb is going to touch the Jupiter finger, and you just separate the rest of the fingers, and then you flip your palms up and let them rest on your knees. And you sit up nice and tall. You want your spine as long as you possibly can. The chin is slightly tucked in, and you close your eyes. And even though the eyes are closed, there's what we call a drishti, a focus, and you're looking at the third eye center. And you seal your lips, and you take 8 sips in through the nose, and then 8 exhales through the nose. So it looks like this. All right, so that was just 4 rounds of it, and you get to see what's in your nostrils, number 1. So it's a good idea to blow your nose first. But that's important because these 2 holes are what's oxygenating this. And so when you inhale, you want them open so that you can oxygenate your computer system. But it's super easy. So it's 8 strokes in, 8 strokes out. And you could do 3 minutes of that and start to really begin to understand stillness and releasing the stress. So go for it. You can do it up to 11 minutes. You could actually do it even up to 31 minutes if you wanted to do it. But what's really important is that you do it regularly over a period of time. So you start to, get that experience of just even questioning yourself. How am I breathing? How am I breathing right now? I mean, most of us breathe right in this upper part, and we pant. And what that tells the body is basically to be afraid that something terrible is about to happen, and that we have to be really, on guard for whatever that is. But as soon as you drop the breath down really deep, you start to relax right away. You start to feel more calm, more peaceful. And then the awesome thing about that is that when you try this is a really cool thing to do, especially if you're with your friend and he or she is freaking out, or your kids are freaking out. If you just start to breathe deeply around them, their breath pattern will automatically change. And we know this. You don't need any kind of teacher to tell you that when someone's freaking out, the first thing we usually say to them is, okay, breathe. Yeah. Breathe. We intuitively know that all healing, the first step of healing, rides on the breath.
It is amazing. It's so simple, and yet it's something that we don't really think about. Right. I have a son who has really bad anxiety, and I know that this whole mirror thing, that, as you said, if I take deep breaths, it automatically drops him down. Yeah. Yes. And I think our tendency is, especially as mothers, when we see our child suffering, is to go into the suffering with them. Sometimes it's a trigger. So I think remembering to really take those deep breaths is such an important tool for us to have. So thank you. And also just remembering that the breath is our energy, right? It is how we fuel ourselves. And so if we're taking these short breaths, it doesn't give us the fuel that we need back to the filling ourselves up. When we do breathe like that, we fill ourselves up, and it feels really good. Yeah.
And that really beautiful image, I want to just share this because it just came up. Something you said about breath reminded me of it. About a month ago, I just started to have this beautiful image in my practice of like inhaling long enough, deep enough, full enough to take in the entire universe, the entire galaxy, to bring it into my body, and then to trust anything that needs to be taken care of, balanced, tweaked, worked, open up, release, whatever is being done on that held breath. And then as I exhale, I release back to the universe. It's a beautiful image, I think, for women to stay connected to their creativity and to not take it personally, because to me, creativity is just letting the divine work through me as me. So relating to it on every breath as a practice, even if it's just for a minute, is really pretty powerful. Pretty cool.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you. That's another very rich practice for women to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm realizing that we're running on to the time, Kenya. So did you want to say a little bit about the package that we're doing?
Yes.
Sukraj?
Yeah, that's why I jumped on. My signal, my service has been kind of bad down here, but the conversation was beautiful. Thank you so much, Sukraj, for coming and having that. And I'm so excited too to talk a little bit about your package to anyone who's watching. We are putting together some of Sukraj's content in the form of ebooks and videos, and we have these beautiful mantras we recorded with this other woman in our community called Jai Gobind. And we're going to be selling it sometime over the next month. We're just finishing it up, and it's a really beautiful opportunity to bring your practice home with you. For so long, Sukraj has been like, I want to take you home with me because your content and your teachings are so beautiful. So this is a really unique opportunity to actually do some of this work at home with some guidance. And we're also going to be doing a workshop in January with Sukraj for anyone here in Boulder. It's going to be on January 9th from 11:30 to 1:30. And if you want any more information about this, you can come to thewomensnetwork.com. I'm going to type it in the side here for anyone who's watching. And you can sign up for our newsletter and get updates about all of this. It's going to be a really wonderful month, a Kundalini month that we're having here at the Women's Network. So thank you.
Super excited to be able to share all of your beautiful teachings and your content, Sukraj. So thank you so much for being with us today and for working with us on putting together the content package. Any last things that you want to leave people with as we sign off?
You know, I guess I would always go back to that Bij mantra, is to Satnam, to trust your true nature and to understand that that's our primary purpose being in these bodies, is to express our true nature and to not worry what other people think about that, because they're too worried thinking about what other people are thinking about. Just to stay steady with your Satnam and to be patient with yourself as you unfold.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you so much. Sukraj.
Thank you. Satnam.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.